The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward like the inside of a cathedral. Thousands of seats curved around a central platform where representatives from 60 different species sat in judgment of the galaxy's affairs. Light from distant stars filtered through crystalline walls, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Elder watched the proceedings from his seat in the upper tier. His scales had turned gray with age, and his eyes had grown cloudy over 9 centuries of life. But his memory remained sharp. Too sharp, perhaps. He remembered things the galaxy had chosen to forget. On the central platform, High Commander of the Dominion stood with his arms spread wide. His red scales gleamed under the chamber lights, and his voice boomed across the assembly. "The Outer Rim territories are lawless," declared. "Pirates raid our merchant vessels. Criminals hide in those systems. The Dominion proposes a simple solution. We will bring order to these forgotten worlds." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew what truly wanted. 3 human colony worlds sat in the Outer Rim, 40 million people who had built homes among the stars. Ambassador Kate Morgan rose from her seat. She was a small woman compared to most species in the chamber. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her expression remained perfectly calm. "The Outer Rim falls under the Protected Species Accord," Kate said. Her voice carried clearly despite its softness. "Earth signed this accord when we joined the galactic community. Those colonies are sovereign human territory." Laughed, the sound echoed off the walls like thunder. "Protected Species Accord," he repeated mockingly. "A document written to shield primitive worlds from contact. Humanity is no longer primitive. You have starships and trade routes. You cannot hide behind old treaties forever." "We are not hiding," Kate replied. "We are following galactic law." Law stepped closer to the human ambassador. He towered over her by nearly 3 feet. "Humanity has been part of galactic civilization for barely 300 years. You are children playing at diplomacy. Your navy has perhaps 50 combat vessels. The Dominion commands over 2,000. Do not speak to me of law." The chamber fell silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The power difference between humanity and they was well known. No one expected the humans to win this argument. Kate Morgan did not step back. She did not raise her voice. She simply looked up at and said, "We request a formal vote on this matter." Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "By all means." Elder could not stay silent any longer. His old bones creaked as he rose from his seat. The movement drew attention from across the chamber. "The council recognizes Elder of the moderator announced. Gripped the railing in front of him. His voice was thin with age, but it carried the weight of centuries. "I must speak," he said. "I must warn this council before it makes a terrible mistake." Rolled his eyes. "The Ancient One has something to say. Let him speak so we may proceed." Ignored the insult. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. 300 years ago I was young," he began. "I served as a junior diplomat when my people first encountered humanity. We thought them weak. They smiled too easily. They preferred trade over conquest. They spoke of peace and cooperation." He paused, gathering strength for what came next. "We decided to test them, a small border dispute. We pushed into their territory expecting them to retreat, to negotiate, to submit." The chamber had grown very quiet. "They did none of these things," continued. "Within 1 month humanity transformed. Their factories ran day and night. Their people volunteered by the millions. Ships we never knew existed emerged from hidden shipyards." His voice trembled as the memories flooded back. "We lost 40 warships in the first engagement, not because human technology was superior, because they fought without hesitation, without mercy, without stopping. They did not sleep. They did not rest. They pushed into our space and kept coming until we begged for peace." Pointed a shaking finger at I have seen human fury. It is not like the rage of other species. It is cold. It is patient. It does not stop. You may kill humans, you may burn their worlds, but you cannot break them, and they will not forget. They will not forgive. They will find you no matter how long it takes. Silence hung in the air, then began to laugh again. A war story from an old fool, he said. They were weak, they are not. Humanity has grown soft in 3 centuries of peace. They write poetry now, they make art. They are merchants and scientists, not warriors. Several other representatives joined in the laughter. The tension in the chamber broke. Warning dissolved into the noise of dismissal and mockery. Kate Morgan watched it all without expression. Her face revealed nothing. She did not argue, she did not plead, she simply waited. The vote proceeded. 42 species voted to allow inspection of the Outer Rim territories. 11 voted against. 7 abstained. The motion carries, the moderator announced. Turned to Kate Morgan with a triumphant smile. You see, human, the galaxy has spoken. We will bring order to your lawless colonies. You should thank us. Kate picked up her data pad and walked toward the exit. She did not respond to. She did not look back at the council. At the doorway, she paused just long enough to send one encrypted message to Earth. The message contained only 4 words. They are not listening. Across the galaxy, in a quiet office on Earth, Admiral Ben Cooper received the transmission. He was an older man with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes. He had served in the military for 30 years, through times of peace when most people forgot that humans had ever been warriors. He opened a classified file on his computer. The file was marked with the highest security clearance. Its name was simple, Contingency Omega. Inside were plans that most human citizens did not know existed, fleet positions, hidden shipyards, weapons that had never been revealed to the galactic community, mobilization procedures that could activate within hours. Ben Cooper stared at the file for a long moment. Then he looked out his window at the peaceful city below. Children played in parks. People went about their daily lives. They had no idea what was coming. They never listen, he said quietly to himself. They see our smiles and think we are harmless. They see our kindness and call it weakness. He closed the file without activating it. Not yet. There was still hope that diplomacy might work. There was still a chance that they would show restraint. But deep in his heart, Ben Cooper knew the truth. He had studied history. He knew what happened when enemies threatened human homes and human families. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. New Haven was a beautiful world. Rolling green hills stretched toward distant mountains. Golden wheat fields swayed in the warm breeze. Small towns dotted the landscape, connected by roads where children rode bicycles and farmers drove their trucks to market. Governor Sam stood on his porch and watched the sunrise. He was a big man with rough hands and a gentle voice. 20 years ago, he had been a Marine. Now he grew tomatoes and raised cattle. He had come to New Haven to build something peaceful, far from the violence of his youth. His communicator buzzed. He looked at the message and his face grew pale. 12 warships had entered the system. Within an hour, the sky above New Haven's capital city darkened with alien vessels. They hung in the atmosphere like predators waiting to strike. Governor activated the emergency broadcast system and told everyone to stay calm. The colony's only military ship was a small frigate called the Endurance. Captain Cole commanded a crew of 120. They were not warriors. Most had never seen combat, but they positioned their ship between the fleet and the planet. "Vessels, this is Captain Cole of the Endurance," transmitted. "You are entering protected territory. Please state your intentions." The response came from Fleet Commander Al, an officer with scars across his face and contempt in his voice. "We are here for inspection, as authorized by the Galactic Council. Lower your shields and surrender your vessel." Kept his voice steady. We have received no official notification of any inspection. I must ask you to hold position while we verify with Earth Command." Al's laugh crackled through the speakers. "You dare give orders to me? One tiny ship against 12 warships. You humans truly are as foolish as they say." "We are not giving orders," replied. "We are asking for time to confirm your authorization. Surely a legitimate inspection force would not object to proper procedures." The communication cut off. Seconds later, the fleet opened fire. The Endurance never had a chance. Energy beams tore through her shields in moments. Explosions ripped through the hull. Cole ordered all hands to abandon ship as the bridge collapsed around him. He stayed at his post. With the last of the ship's power, he transmitted everything: sensor data, video recordings, evidence of an unprovoked attack on a peaceful vessel. "Earth Command, this is Captain Cole," he said as flames spread behind him. "They fired without warning. Tell my family I love them." The Endurance broke apart and fell toward the planet in pieces. On the surface, Governor watched the burning debris streak across the sky. He knew what came next. He had seen enough war to recognize the beginning of a massacre. Landing craft descended on every major town. Soldiers in heavy armor marched through streets designed for peaceful life. They carried weapons meant for conquest. Commander Al broadcast his demands from orbit. "All humans will surrender immediately. Your weapons, your resources, and your lives now belong to the Dominion. Resistance will be punished with death." Some people tried to run. Gunships cut them down in the fields. Some people tried to hide. Soldiers dragged them from cellars and closets. Some people tried to fight with hunting rifles and farm tools. They died where they stood. Dr. Lisa Park worked at New Haven's Central Hospital. She was a small woman with steady hands and a calm voice. When the first wounded arrived, she organized her staff and began treating patients. "Focus on what we can control," she told her nurses. "Save who we can save." For 3 hours they worked without stopping. Gunshot wounds, burns, crush injuries, the emergency room filled with screaming and crying. Lisa kept moving, kept working, kept her fear locked deep inside. Then they came to the hospital. They marched through the front doors with weapons raised. Lisa stepped forward with her hands up. "This is a medical facility," she said. "These people are wounded. They are no threat to you." The commander looked at her with cold, reptilian eyes. "They are human. That is threat enough." He raised his weapon and shot the patient in the nearest bed. Then he nodded to his soldiers. They moved through the ward systematically, executing the wounded, killing the helpless, ignoring the screams of the nurses who tried to stop them. Lisa watched in frozen horror. A soldier grabbed her arm and threw her against the wall. Another soldier raised his weapon to her head. "Wait," the commander said. "She is a doctor. She may be useful." They dragged Lisa away. Behind her, the hospital burned. In the town square, Governor stood before a crowd of captured colonists. His hands were bound. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. Soldiers surrounded them all. Commander Al descended from his shuttle and walked toward the governor. He moved slowly, enjoying the fear in the crowd. "You were their leader," Al said. "You should have surrendered immediately. Instead, your people resisted. They died for nothing." Sam looked at the families huddled together, children clutching their parents, elderly couples holding hands, people he had sworn to protect. "They died for their homes," Sam said quietly. "They died free." Al struck him across the face. "Freedom is an illusion. Power is the only truth. Your species will learn this lesson." He drew his ceremonial blade and held it high for all to see. "Let this be a message to all humans. The Dominion does not show mercy to those who resist." Governor Sam died in front of his people. He did not beg. He did not cry out. He looked at the sky one last time and thought of the peaceful sunrise that morning. By the end of the first day, 12,000 colonists were dead. The broadcast their victory across every channel. They showed footage of burning towns and surrendering civilians. They called it a great triumph over human resistance. Across human space, billions watched in silence. There were no riots, no angry mobs in the streets, no demands for immediate revenge, just silence. On Earth, families gathered around screens and watched their die. They saw children separated from parents. They saw doctors executed in hospitals. They saw their governor murdered for the crime of loving his home. And then quietly, the phones began to ring. Retired soldiers answered calls from old commanding officers. Factory managers received new production orders. Engineers reported to shipyards that had been dormant for decades. Pilots scheduled for vacation changed their plans and headed for military bases. No one ordered them. No speeches were given. No declarations were made. Humanity simply began to move. Admiral Ben Cooper stood in the command center and watched the reports flow in. Volunteer rates were breaking every record. Production facilities were switching to military output without being asked. Scientists were dusting off weapons research that had been shelved for generations. His aide approached with a data pad. "Sir, what are your orders?" Ben looked at the screen showing New Haven in flames. He thought of Governor, a good man who had only wanted peace. He thought of Dr. Lisa Park, dragged away to an unknown fate. He thought of Captain Cole, who stayed at his post until the end. "Begin full mobilization," he said. "Activate contingency Omega." "Sir, that will take time. The Galactic Council may intervene." Ben shook his head slowly. The Council allowed this. They voted for it. They watched that old elder beg them to listen, and they laughed. He turned to face his staff. His voice was quiet but carried through the room. No more warnings. No more diplomacy. They wanted to see what humans become when we stop smiling. He looked back at the burning colony world. Show them. 2 weeks passed after the massacre at New Haven. They celebrated their easy victory. Commander Al received medals and promotions. High Commander gave speeches about superiority. The galaxy watched and assumed humanity would accept defeat quietly. They were wrong. Deep beneath the mountains of Earth, Admiral Ben Cooper stood before a wall of screens. Around him, officers monitored data streams from across human space. Commander Grace, his chief tactical officer, highlighted positions on a holographic star map. "They believe we have 50 combat ships," Grace said. "That is what we showed the galaxy. That is what they planned for." She pressed a button. The map changed. Hundreds of new markers appeared. "This is reality. 218 combat vessels, 47 more completing construction, 15 deep space carriers with full fighter complements." President Henry Shaw studied the display. He was a thin man who had spent most of his life as a history professor. He never expected to lead humanity into war. "We hid this from everyone," he said quietly, "for generations." "Humanity learned from its history," Ben explained. "We watched other species reveal their full strength. We saw how rivals responded. So we showed the galaxy what they wanted to see: peaceful traders, friendly diplomats, a small defense force just large enough to seem legitimate. And the truth is that we never forgot what we are. Every human colony has hidden bunkers. Every civilian freighter can be converted to military use within days. Every citizen over 18 has basic combat training available through public education." Grace pulled up another display. "They have scattered their fleet. They believe the war is already won. Their supply lines stretch across dozens of systems. Their commanders are competing for glory rather than coordinating strategy." President Shaw looked at the screens for a long moment. "What is the plan?" "We call it Operation Silent Thunder," Grace said. "We will not fight a traditional war. We will become ghosts. They will never see us coming. They will never know where we strike next. We will take apart their war machine piece by piece until nothing remains." The president nodded slowly, "And the civilian population on worlds?" "We are not monsters," Ben said firmly. "Military targets only, warships, supply depots, command centers. We will give their civilians every opportunity to evacuate. We will treat prisoners with dignity. We will prove that humanity's fury is not cruelty." "But it is still fury." "Yes," Ben admitted. "It is still fury. They killed 12,000 of our people. They murdered children in front of their parents. They executed wounded patients in hospital beds. We will answer that, but we will answer it our way." President Shaw closed his eyes. When he opened them, his decision was made. Authorized all of it, do what must be done. The first phase began within hours. A supply convoy traveled through the system. 20 cargo ships carrying fuel and ammunition to the occupation forces at New Haven. 4 escort warships protected them. They never arrived. Human ships appeared from the darkness of deep space. They moved without running lights, without active sensors, without radio transmissions. They struck in perfect silence. Precision weapons disabled the escort ships before alarms could sound. Boarding parties captured the cargo vessels. Within 30 minutes it was over. The convoy vanished from tracking systems. No distress calls were sent. No survivors were found. Commander Al received the report at his headquarters on New Haven. He assumed it was a navigation error. Ships sometimes went off course. They would reappear. They did not reappear. 3 days later, a major fuel depot in the system exploded. The facility stored enough fuel for an entire battle fleet. Internal sensors showed no intruders. Security footage showed nothing unusual. One moment the depot existed. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of fire and debris. Investigators found no evidence of sabotage. No bombs. No infiltrators. Just catastrophic failure of systems that had been functioning perfectly for decades. High Commander dismissed it as coincidence. Equipment failed sometimes. Supply convoys got lost. These things happened in the chaos of military operations. Then the commanders began to die. Admiral Al was the first. He commanded the Third Fleet from his flagship in the Reaches. One night, his personal shuttle exploded during a routine transfer. No witnesses, no survivors, no explanation. General Al was next. He led the ground forces on the occupied human colony of Riverside. He was found dead in his heavily guarded quarters. The doors were still locked from the inside. His own weapon had fired the killing shot, but the forensics made no sense. 2 more admirals died within the week. A fuel tank rupture, a tragic airlock malfunction, a navigation error that sent a shuttle into an asteroid field. Each death was technically possible. Together, they formed a pattern that made officers very nervous. Captain Nick Torres led the team responsible for most of these operations. His unit had no official name. Officially, they did not exist, but among human special forces, they were known as Phantom Unit. They moved through space like shadows. They gathered intelligence, eliminated key targets, and disappeared before anyone knew they were there. They planted explosives that detonated weeks later. They sabotaged equipment in ways that looked like normal wear. They turned their own systems against them. The galaxy watched in growing amazement. Human merchants still smiled at their customers. Human diplomats still attended Galactic Council sessions. Human artists still produced beautiful works, but somewhere in the darkness, something else was happening. Elder sat in his quarters and watched the news feeds. Report after report of losses. Convoys vanished, bases destroyed, commanders killed, and always no evidence of human involvement. "I warned them," he whispered to his empty room. "I told them what humanity becomes." He remembered his own war against the humans 3 centuries ago. The same pattern, quiet at first, small losses that seemed like bad luck. Then growing chaos as the humans found every weakness, exploited every flaw, anticipated every move. The Still did not understand. They sent more ships to guard their convoys. They increased security around their commanders. They searched for the human fleet that must be attacking them. They found nothing, because the human fleet was not attacking them, not yet. The main fleet was still gathering, still preparing, still waiting. What they faced now was just the beginning. The warning shots, the softening of defenses, the systematic destruction of everything they needed to fight a real war. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kate Morgan returned to her seat. High Commander demanded that the Council condemn humanity's actions. He called them terrorists, pirates, murderers. Kate Morgan stood calmly. She pressed a button on her data pad. Screens throughout the chamber activated. The footage from New Haven played, the hospital massacre, the execution of Governor, the families torn apart, the bodies of children lying in fields of wheat. The council fell silent. "You asked for this," Kate said quietly. "You voted for this, you gave them permission." She looked around the chamber at representatives who would not meet her eyes. "Now you will watch what happens next." In his fortress on the High Commander received a message on his personal terminal. His security teams had checked that terminal countless times. It was impossible to hack. It was protected by the best encryption in the galaxy. The message appeared anyway. It contained coordinates to a location in deep space. Below the coordinates was a single line of text. "We are coming for you." Stared at the screen. For the first time since the war began, he felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. The stars at the edge of space shimmered. Then they tore open. 212 human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They moved like a single organism, each vessel knowing its exact position and purpose. Carriers launched fighters that spread across the void like silver clouds. Battleships armed weapons that hummed with terrible power. Admiral Ben Cooper stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity. Screens surrounded him showing tactical data from across the fleet. Commander Grace worked at her station, coordinating the movements of thousands of ships and millions of crew. "All vessels report ready," Grace announced. "The defensive fleet is moving to intercept 94 warships." Ben nodded slowly. They outnumbered them in this sector, but numbers meant nothing when you had spent 6 weeks learning everything about your enemy. "Open a channel, all frequencies." His voice broadcast across the system, reaching every ship, every station, every listening device. "This is Admiral Ben Cooper of the Human Defense Forces. We are here for our people. Return the prisoners from New Haven, Riverside, and Clearwater colonies. Return them unharmed. Do this now and this war ends. Refuse and we will take them ourselves." The response came within seconds. High Commander appeared on screen, his red scales gleaming with anger. "You threaten us. You invade our space with your tiny fleet and make demands." He laughed, but the sound was hollow. "We have 28,000 human prisoners. If you advance 1 light-year closer to our, we will execute them all." Ben's expression did not change. "Every prisoner you harm adds another century to this war. Every human you kill will be remembered, and we will make certain that you remember too." Pretty words from a dead species. "We shall see." The fleet charged forward. Their tactics were aggressive, designed to overwhelm enemies with superior numbers and firepower. It was how they had conquered a dozen species over the centuries. It would not work today. Grace had studied every battle for the past 6 months. She knew their formations, their response times, their command structures. She knew which captains were aggressive and which were cautious. She knew exactly what they would do before they did it. "Execute Pattern 7, she ordered. The human fleet split into 3 groups. 2 curved outward while 1 held position. They saw an opportunity to strike the center group and took it. They flew directly into a trap. The flanking groups had positioned themselves perfectly. Crossfire caught the vanguard from multiple angles. Ships that had expected easy targets found themselves surrounded. The formation shattered within minutes. Captain Amy commanded the carrier Independence. Her fighter squadron swept through the chaos like hunting birds. They targeted engines first, leaving warships drifting and helpless. They targeted weapons second, stripping vessels of their ability to fight. Capture when possible, Amy reminded her pilots. Kill only when necessary. It was not mercy. It was strategy. Dead enemies told no stories. Captured enemies spread fear. Survivors would return to their people with tales of human precision and human discipline. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 61 warships had been destroyed or captured. Human losses were 8 vessels. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had dismissed humanity as weak traitors stared at their screens in disbelief. They had been one of the most powerful military forces in known space. Humans had just torn through their fleet like it was made of paper. Elder watched the battle footage from his quarters. Tears ran down his aged face. Not tears of joy, tears of sorrow for what was to come. He contacted Ambassador Kate Morgan through private channels. "Ambassador, please, I beg you to negotiate. I have seen this before. I know how it ends. The will not survive." Kate's face showed no emotion. "We tried negotiation. Your council voted against us. Your colleagues laughed at you when you warned them. They were fools, I know that now, but surely there must be a way to stop this." "There is a way. Return our prisoners, all of them, unharmed. Remove all forces from human territory. Hold those responsible for the massacres accountable. And if we cannot convince the High Commander to accept these terms." Kate leaned closer to the camera. "Then we will convince him ourselves." The human fleet advanced steadily toward the. Admiral Cooper did not rush. He did not need to. Every day, more forces defected or surrendered. Every day, more colonial governors signed separate peace agreements. The Dominion was crumbling from within. High Commander gathered his remaining loyal forces around the. 200 ships formed a defensive sphere. Ground forces dug into fortified positions. He broadcast defiant speeches about honor and final victory. No one believed him anymore. The human fleet arrived at Prime on a quiet morning. They surrounded the planet in a formation that left no gaps. No ship could enter or leave without permission. Ben Cooper broadcast one final message. "We do not want to destroy your world. We do not want to kill your civilians. We want our people back. Release the prisoners and we will withdraw. Refuse, and we will come down there and get them ourselves." His response was predictable. More threats, more bravado, more promises of death and destruction. But the soldiers on the ground had seen the battle footage. They knew what was coming. When human landing craft descended toward the surface, half the defenders threw down their weapons and surrendered without firing a shot. The rest fought. They fought bravely, with the desperation of those who knew they had already lost. Human ground forces advanced steadily, clearing each position with careful precision. They took prisoners when enemies surrendered. They gave medical treatment to wounded soldiers. They protected civilians who fled the combat zones. It was not the war they had expected. Humans were supposed to be soft. Humans were supposed to break under pressure. Humans were supposed to commit atrocities that would justify resistance. Instead, humans fought with cold efficiency and strange compassion. They killed without hatred. They captured without cruelty. They advanced without stopping, but they did not massacre those who gave up. It was somehow more terrifying than pure brutality. Commander Al, the officer who had led the New Haven massacre, was found hiding in a bunker. He begged for mercy. He claimed he was only following orders. He promised to cooperate fully. The human soldiers who captured him said nothing. They bound his hands, recorded his location, and moved on. He would face justice later. They had more important work to do. Dr. Lisa Park was found in a prison camp outside the capital city. She had been forced to treat wounded soldiers for weeks. She was thin and exhausted, but her eyes lit up when she saw human uniforms. "You came," she whispered. "I knew you would come." The soldier who freed her was young, barely 20 years old. He handed her a blanket and a bottle of water. "We never leave our people behind," he said simply. "Never." By evening, the fighting had reached Fortress. It was a massive structure built into a mountainside, designed to withstand orbital bombardment. Inside, the High Commander waited with his personal guard. Admiral Cooper landed a ground force outside the main gates. He sent one final message. "You have 1 hour. Release the remaining prisoners. Surrender yourself to face trial, or we come in." Did not respond. The hour passed. Human forces breached the gates with explosive charges. They moved through corridors built for defenders, clearing each room with grenades and precision fire. The guards fought to the last soldier. They found the High Commander in his throne room. He sat in his ceremonial chair, surrounded by the symbols of conquest. His weapon lay on the floor beside him. He had considered using it on himself. In the end, he lacked the courage. "So this is humanity's fury," said as soldiers surrounded him. "I expected something more impressive." Admiral Cooper stepped forward. His face was tired. His uniform was dusty from the battlefield. He looked at the fallen emperor of a crumbling dominion. "You expected us to become monsters," Ben said. "You expected us to prove that we were no better than you. That is why you lost, because we are better, not stronger, not smarter, better." He turned to his soldiers. "Take him. He will face trial for his crimes. The galaxy will see that humanity's justice is not revenge." As they led away, Ben stood alone in the throne room. He thought of Governor Sam dying in a town square. He thought of Captain Cole staying at his post. He thought of 12,000 civilians who would never come home. He thought of the cost of victory. And he wondered if it was worth it. 3 months after the fall of the galaxy had changed. High Commander stood trial before a joint tribunal of human and galactic judges. The proceedings were broadcast across every inhabited world. Billions watched as evidence was presented, footage from New Haven, testimony from survivors, records of orders given and atrocities committed. Tried to claim he was acting in the interests of his people. He tried to argue that humanity had provoked the war. He tried to shift blame to subordinates who could not defend themselves. The tribunal listened patiently. When finished speaking, they delivered their verdict. Guilty of crimes against sentient beings. Guilty of ordering the murder of civilians. Guilty of executing prisoners of war. Sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote facility where he would spend his remaining years contemplating his choices. Some voices called for execution. Admiral Ben Cooper himself argued against it. "We did not fight this war to become executioners," he told the tribunal. "We fought to protect our people and to prove that justice does not require cruelty. Let him live with what he has done. That is punishment enough." The Dominion ceased to exist. Its territories were placed under Galactic Council supervision. Former member worlds were given the choice to become independent or join other federations. Most chose independence, eager to escape the shadow of conquest. All 28,000 human prisoners returned home. They came back on ships decorated with flowers and flags. Crowds gathered at every spaceport to welcome them. Families reunited with tears and embraces. Children met parents they had feared were lost forever. Dr. Lisa Park stepped off her transport on New Haven. The planet looked different now. Burned towns had been cleared. New buildings rose where destruction had stood. Fields that had been soaked with blood now grew golden with wheat again. She walked through the capital city toward the central hospital. Construction crews worked on a new wing being added to the rebuilt structure. A banner hung above the entrance, in memory of those who healed and those who could not be saved. A young doctor approached her. "Dr. Park, it is an honor. We named the new trauma center after you." Lisa smiled sadly. "I did not do anything heroic. I just tried to help." "You survived. You gave us hope. That was enough." At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kate Morgan presented a new document. She called it the Morgan Doctrine, though she insisted the name was not her choice. The doctrine was simple. Any attack on human civilians would be considered an act of war against all of humanity. Any species that harmed human children, families, or peaceful settlements would face the full weight of human military power. The Council voted unanimously to accept the doctrine. No one argued. No one laughed. No one dismissed humanity as weak traitors who wrote poetry. Elder was given a permanent seat of honor at the council table. When asked to speak, he rose slowly on aged legs. "Many of you wonder why I tried so hard to warn you," he said. "You think perhaps I was afraid of humanity. You are wrong. I was afraid for you." He looked around the chamber at representatives, who now listened carefully to every word. "I have lived 900 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed terrible wars and beautiful peace, and in all that time I have never encountered a species like humanity." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "They smile easily. They love deeply. They create art and music that can move even the coldest heart. They would rather trade than fight, rather talk than shoot, rather build than destroy." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But threaten what they love and everything changes. Their fury is not madness. It is love without restraint. It is protection without limits. It is the determination of parents defending children, of friends defending friends, of a species that will sacrifice everything for those they care about." Sat down heavily. "I warned you because I did not want you to learn this lesson the hard way. You did not listen. Now the galaxy remembers. I hope we never forget." Admiral Ben Cooper retired from active service 6 months after the war ended. He had no interest in parades or medals. He had seen enough death for one lifetime. He visited New Haven one spring morning. The transport landed at a small town that had been rebuilt from ashes. Children played in a new park where the town square once stood. Dr. Lisa Park met him at the landing pad. She looked healthier now, though shadows still lingered in her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. "The town council wanted you to see what we have built." They walked together through clean streets, new houses with gardens, a school where children learned without fear, a memorial wall with the names of those who did not survive. Ben stopped at the wall. He found the name he was looking for, Governor Sam. "He was a good man," Lisa said quietly. "He refused to abandon us even when he knew what would happen." "He was a Marine," Ben replied. "Once a Marine, always a Marine. He knew the cost of freedom." They stood in silence for a moment. "Was it worth it?" Lisa asked finally. "All the death, all the destruction, the soldiers who did not come home, the civilians caught in the fighting, was any of it worth it?" Ben thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the prisoners who returned to their families. He thought about the worlds that would never face conquest. He thought about the message humanity had sent to the galaxy. "I do not know," he admitted. "War is never clean. It is never simple. People we loved died. People who were innocent suffered. We did terrible things for good reasons and good things for terrible reasons." He turned to face her. "But I know this. If we had done nothing, they would have continued. Other colonies would have burned. Other hospitals would have been massacred. Other children would have lost their parents." He looked up at the peaceful sky. "We did not choose this war. We only chose to finish it." In the afternoon, a transport arrived carrying visitors. Admiral Cooper's daughter Maya stepped off the ship. She was 17 years old, with her mother's dark hair and her father's steady eyes. She had wanted to see New Haven for herself. She had watched the war from Earth, terrified that her father would not return. Now she needed to understand what had happened and why. They walked together through the rebuilt streets. Maya asked questions about the war, about the decisions her father had made, about the weight he carried. Ben answered as honestly as he could. He did not hide the difficult parts. He did not pretend the war had been noble or glorious. He told her about the fear, the doubt, the moments when he wondered if they were becoming as bad as their enemies. "Dad," Maya said as they watched the sunset, "will there be another war?" Ben looked at the sky turning gold and orange. He thought about the galaxy watching humanity. He thought about other aggressive species quietly canceling their expansion plans. He thought about the Morgan Doctrine and Elder's warning finally being heeded. "Not if the galaxy remembers," he said. In the Galactic Archives, a clerk updated the species database. Under the entry for humanity, new text appeared. Status: full member of Galactic Council. Military capability: significant, previously underestimated. Disposition: peaceful by choice. Diplomatic preference: trade and cooperation. Warning: do not mistake their kindness for weakness. Do not threaten their civilians or colonies. The Elder warned of their fury. The galaxy paid no attention. The galaxy learned. The galaxy remembers. On New Haven, night fell over the rebuilt towns. Lights glowed in windows where families gathered for dinner. In the new hospital, doctors treated patients without fear. In schools, teachers prepared lessons for tomorrow. And in a small park, a bronze statue stood watching over everything. It showed a man with gentle eyes and strong hands, a farmer, a marine, a governor who died rather than abandon his people. The plaque at the base read simply, "Sam, he stood when others fell. New Haven remembers." The stars came out one by one, filling the sky with light. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the borders. Somewhere out there, diplomats worked to prevent the next conflict. Somewhere out there, merchants smiled at customers and artists created beautiful things. Humanity remained what it had always been: kind, creative, hopeful. And ready. Always ready. Because the galaxy finally understood the truth that Elder had known for 300 years. Humanity did not seek war. Humanity did not enjoy destruction. Humanity wanted nothing more than peace and prosperity for all species. But humanity would never, ever let its people suffer without answering. And the answer, when it came, would shake the stars themselves. The galaxy had learned. The galaxy remembered. And the galaxy would not forget.